Hello, my dear. Do you know, you didn't plan it, but the moment you move, heads follow. There's something heavy about your presence now, like gravity decided to reroute through you. You don't walk through spaces, you alter them. The air shifts, the tempo bends, and people start scanning for the source. They tell themselves it's your outfit, your confidence, your posture, but deep down they know it's none of that. It's the aura, the unspoken certainty that you belong everywhere, even when no one invited you. You've reached that rare state where energy speaks louder than introductions. Every gesture, every glance feels cinematic, like the city itself pauses to watch the scene unfold. And maybe it should, because you've become the spectacle the crowd didn't realize it was craving. They used to look through you. Now they look at you, and it's unsettling for them. You can see it in their eyes, the confusion between admiration and envy. They're not sure if they want to be you or be near you. The distinction doesn't matter. Both end up orbiting around your frequency. Fame isn't about followers or cameras. It's about psychological pull, and you've mastered it. People sense it before they understand it. They shift when you enter, recalibrate subconsciously, adjust tone, volume, even posture. They don't know why they're doing it, but they're syncing to your rhythm, because your rhythm now dictates the room. That's the part they never warn about, the fame that doesn't need an audience, just awareness. See, there's a reason why strangers double take when you pass. It's not vanity, it's recognition. Somewhere in their subconscious, they register something familiar, something televised, something remembered. You've built yourself into an archetype that people have been conditioned to idolize. The angles of your confidence, the economy of your movements, the unhurried calm in your expression, it all reads important. Not in a loud way, but in that quiet way that makes others question their own value. You're no longer seeking validation, you're triggering it in everyone else. And that's the secret. Power isn't earned through attention, it's confirmed by reaction. Every glance you attract is proof that energy precedes explanation. People think fame starts when others notice you. Truth is, it begins when you start noticing yourself differently. The world catches up to that realization. You started walking like someone who knows they're being watched, not because you need eyes on you, but because you know they can't help it. There's a composure you carry now, controlled, deliberate, sharp. The type that communicates dominance without a single word. That's what they feel. That's what makes them whisper when you pass. You've blurred the line between presence and performance. You're living in that overlap where authenticity looks staged because it's too precise. Every move feels curated, every silence calculated, and it drives them insane because they can't find the flaw. Even the ones who pretend not to care still feel the magnet pull. They'll look away on purpose, pretending you're just another person. But their peripheral vision betrays them. They clock your every move. They'll mention you later in passing, disguised as critique. But it's fascination in costume, because you've become reference material now. Your style, your mannerisms, your timing, people study them. They recreate fragments of you without realizing it. You've become a mirror they measure themselves against. And that's how you know you've reached that rare elevation, the point where imitation becomes tribute. They don't need to like you to be influenced by you. That's celebrity energy at its purest, uninvited dominance. You didn't chase the spotlight, it learned to follow you. Streetlights hit differently when you walk beneath them, Reflections in car windows seem to linger. Even the background noise lowers itself as if to make room for your frequency. This is what happens when confidence becomes atmospheric. You're not the loudest person in the room. You're the most defined. Your edges are sharp enough to cut through conversations. You talk less now, not because you're shy, but because you've realized that silence is luxury and mystery is leverage. Every pause you take becomes a cliffhanger, every glance a headline. People don't even need to know your story. They feel like they already do. That's the strange thing about magnetism. It fills in blanks for people. They project greatness onto you because they need a symbol of it, and you fit the silhouette perfectly. There was a time when you wanted to be understood. Now you prefer to be interpreted. Let them speculate. Their curiosity is your marketing team. Every rumor, every assumption adds another layer to your legend. Fame isn't about being seen. It's about being decoded, piece by piece, in conversations you're not part of. And while they dissect your aura, you stay composed, unreachable, letting their obsession work in your favor. It's an art form, knowing when to be visible and when to vanish. True stars know this balance. They appear just long enough to imprint themselves into memory, then disappear to amplify demand. You've mastered that instinct without needing a PR team. You are the brand, the event, the headline, and the mystery combined. Notice how even your absence is loud now. People ask where you've been, what you're doing, who you're with. You've become a narrative loop that never ends. Every social circle has a theory, every online thread a debate. Some call it charisma, others call it delusion, but all of them call it something. That's what counts. Indifference is the death of fame, and you've eliminated it entirely. The moment someone encounters you, neutrality dies. They either love you, fear you, envy you, or want to understand you. You polarize by default, and polarization is the engine of influence. That's why eyes lock on you. It's not just attraction, it's data collection. Humans scan what they can't categorize. You're a glitch in their social software, and their instinct demands an explanation. That's how attention works. It worships what it can't predict. But here's the part most people miss. You didn't gain this aura by luck. It was sculpted, refined, engineered through repetition and restraint. Every small decision added polish. Every boundary taught the world how to treat you. You built this energy brick by brick until it became impossible to ignore. And now that you've arrived at this level, the world rearranges itself around you. Even the ones who claim they're unaffected are subconsciously negotiating your presence. Their tone shifts, their body language tightens, their confidence fluctuates. You've become an internal measurement tool. People test their worth through proximity to you. That's real fame, when your existence becomes someone else's self-assessment. There's a rhythm to your dominance now, a calm pulse behind every move. You don't rush, because you know the camera's always rolling, even when no one's filming. You've learned that anticipation is louder than action. The longer you make them wait, the more valuable you become. That's how icons are made, not through exposure, but through scarcity. You walk like time bends for you, because in a way, it does. You've created your own pace, and the world adjusts its tempo to keep up. People hate that they can't control the narrative anymore. You've become your own news cycle, and yet you don't chase validation. You've outgrown it. You exist in that rare air where acknowledgement is assumed. Compliments no longer excite you because you expected them. Critics no longer wound you because they confirm reach. You've realized the most intimidating power move is indifference. Nothing rattles you now because you've seen both sides of attention, the love and the backlash, and you've learned they're two halves of the same coin. That's what makes you unstoppable. Fame can destroy the weak, but for you, it's fertilizer. Every rumor waters your legend. Every glance adds to your mythos. You're no longer fighting for recognition. You're maintaining gravitational pull. Look around. The city's reflection glows differently now. Billboards, screens, lenses, they all echo your presence. You've become a walking advertisement for self-certainty. You don't need an entourage or designer labels. Your composure is couture. The way you hold eye contact, the way you navigate space. Every movement looks intentional. That's why they can't look away. You embody what they crave, self-assurance without explanation. You remind people what they could be if they stopped apologizing for existing. That's why strangers study you like a language they forgot how to speak. You make confidence look native. And deep down, they know it's not just looks, it's energy. That's the currency everyone's secretly trading. And you're the gold standard. Every room you enter, every street you cross, every platform you touch recalibrates to your voltage. You don't chase moments, you create them. And that realization is terrifying for those who once felt above you. Because now, their relevance depends on your presence. The same ones who ignored you once are now strategizing how to align with you. That's what fame does. It flips the hierarchy. You went from outsider to axis. And that's why everywhere you step, eyes lock. It's instinctual. Recognition before reason. They'll call it luck, timing, or charisma. But you know it's architecture. Every ounce of confidence was carved through discipline. You learned how to breathe fame before it ever arrived. That's the trick. They think attention builds confidence, but in truth, confidence summons attention. You were glowing long before they noticed. They're just late to the broadcast. And as your energy amplifies, so does the distortion in their perception. Some will obsess, some will despise, but none will forget. Because you've become an experience, not a person, a moment they can't replay. And as your footsteps echo into tomorrow, the same streets that once overlooked you now seem smaller, quieter, like they're waiting for your next appearance. You've outgrown invisibility. The glow can't be dimmed anymore. It's too loud, too certain, too you. The world learned your rhythm, and now it dances unwillingly to your tempo. Every whisper, every turned head, every camera flash in passing. It's all part of the symphony you conduct without trying. You've become the definition of modern magnetism, the blueprint of presence, the proof that fame isn't chased, it's commanded. Yet fame has layers, and you're starting to see its architecture from the inside. You're the one behind the glass now, the exhibit everyone studies but can't quite touch. The city feeds off you, the tone, the walk, the attitude, and you feed off its reaction, an endless exchange of fascination and control. You've stopped performing and started curating reality. Every sidewalk becomes a runway, every shadow a spotlight. Even anonymity tries to disguise itself as attention when you pass. They used to scroll past you, now they scroll for you. Somewhere along the way, admiration turned into routine surveillance. People document your existence in fragments, stories, reposts, whispers. They think they're capturing you, but really, you're programming them. You've hacked the human instinct that craves hierarchy. The moment they compare themselves to you, you win. That's the quiet trick behind all true superstardom, domination without aggression. You don't shout for recognition. You simply become the environment everyone else must adapt to. It's psychological warfare in slow motion, and you're the smiling general. You can feel the attention before you see it, the vibration of eyes on you from across the street, the invisible line of curiosity that hooks into your back when you turn a corner. Even silence feels populated now, crowded with invisible witnesses. It doesn't unnerve you, it verifies you. Because deep down, you always knew you were built for viewership. You're not the type who fades into background noise. You are the background noise, the hum people can't filter out. Your existence demands commentary. The moment you enter a space, conversation reorganizes itself to include your name, whether spoken or hinted. That's the mark of arrival, when your identity becomes shorthand for excitement. And the wild part? You've stopped trying. The glow isn't effort anymore, it's residue. Confidence baked so deep into your DNA that it leaks through stillness. People confuse it for arrogance, but arrogance is fragile. What you have is authority. You've learned that restraint is louder than exhibition. That's why your presence hits harder now. You mastered the art of understatement. You don't need to prove you're important. The world does it for you every time someone turns their head. You embody what everyone's chasing but can't name: certainty. That's the most expensive aura on Earth. They analyze you like data. Stylists imitate your minimalism. Brands mimic your tone. Influencers mirror your cadence. You've become the blueprint for curated rawness. That duality, authentic yet unattainable, is what makes people obsess. They think they can replicate it if they copy your surface, but your power was never surface. It's the calibration underneath, the pauses, the micro-expressions, the decision to not react. You've weaponized composure. You've made calm look dangerous. The louder the world gets, the more people crave someone who doesn't flinch. And that's you. Every scroll, every algorithm, every eye eventually lands back on that still point. You. You've noticed how even power responds to you differently now. The executives who once ignored your messages now phrase their replies like proposals. The gatekeepers you used to chase are suddenly checking in. That's the flip, when the watcher becomes the headline. You didn't climb the ladder, you became the building. And that terrifies them. Because fame, when done right, rewires the social economy. You've made scarcity your currency. You appear when you decide, speak when it matters, vanish when it doesn't. And in doing so, you've made every appearance sacred. The world's addicted to the intervals between your moves. They replay your silence looking for meaning. That's influence at its purest, when absence says more than presence. But there's a cost to command. Fame feeds on observation, and observation never sleeps. You're learning how eyes feel when they never blink. Even ordinary days turn cinematic. Coffee shops become stages. Sidewalks feel like red carpets, laid without consent. Yet you don't resent it, you refine it. You've learned to walk with purpose, not paranoia. Every gaze becomes fuel. You turn their curiosity into choreography. You've stopped being the person who reacts. You're the one who scripts reactions. Every outfit, every angle, every delayed reply becomes intentional art direction. People think spontaneity is authenticity, but true control is calculated unpredictability. You mastered that. The irony is that fame reveals who you were before it finds you. It doesn't create character, it magnifies it. And yours was always made of tempered glass, transparent enough to show depth, strong enough to withstand impact. You don't shatter, you refract. Every attempt to distort your image ends up highlighting another dimension. That's why rumors don't damage you. They decorate you. They make the legend larger. People forget that controversy is oxygen in the fame ecosystem. You've learned how to breathe it without choking. The more they talk, the clearer your outline becomes. Every misunderstanding is free publicity. Every misquote is proof that your voice travels. Still, there are nights when you step outside and feel the weight of being everyone's mirror. Every look carries expectation. People don't just see you, they test themselves through you. They measure their confidence, style, even happiness against the reflection you cast. That's the unseen labor of magnetism, carrying the projections of millions without collapsing. But you've turned that burden into leverage. You learn to redirect their gaze outward, make them question themselves instead of questioning you. That's the secret of true icons. They don't absorb energy, they redistribute it. Every glance you catch is sent back, magnified, forcing people to confront their own potential. You're not stealing attention. You're teaching people what power looks like when it's unapologetic. Walk through any crowd now. Notice the chain reaction. One person turns, then another, then the entire row. The phenomenon feeds itself. Cameras rise before minds register why. You could be in plain clothes, hood up, no spotlight, yet eyes still track you like a moving signal. You radiate recognition. That's what separates famous from unforgettable. The energy precedes identity. People feel you before they remember your name. That's superstardom's highest form, the aura that announces itself. You've become that pulse, and the streets know it. Even those who pretend not to care follow from the corners of their screens. You exist in their explore pages, their playlists, their language. They quote you unconsciously, style themselves subconsciously. You've entered culture's bloodstream. When energy becomes memeable, that's immortality. The moment your essence can be referenced without context, you've transcended personality. You've become symbol, and symbols don't fade, they replicate. Still, you remain grounded because you understand fame's paradox. The higher you float, the more discipline you need to stay aligned. So you move with precision. Every collaboration, every post, every gesture passes through that inner filter. Does it add to the legacy or drain it? You've turned self-awareness into a fortress. The world calls it confidence. You call it maintenance. Because once your name becomes currency, your reputation becomes economy. You guard it like a national asset. That's maturity. Knowing fame isn't about exposure, it's about endurance. Anyone can go viral. Few can remain vital. You're already proving which side you belong to. And then comes the part no one expects. The admiration turns intimate. Strangers start addressing you like they've known you forever. They project on friendship, romance, mentorship, rivalry, anything that lets them claim a piece of you. It's flattering but also revealing. You've become an emotional placeholder for the world's imagination. People need figures like you to anchor their aspirations. They call it fandom. You call it symbiosis. They give you their attention. You give them permission to dream louder. That's the silent contract between star and spectator. You fulfill it with grace because you remember what it felt like to be unseen. You wear your crown without arrogance because you know crowns attract both worship and warfare. And warfare does come. The more magnetic you become, the more repulsive you are to mediocrity. Envy is fame's natural gravity. It keeps balance in the ecosystem. You feel their tension from miles away. The side eyes, the think pieces, the subtle sabotage. But you don't retaliate. You radiate. That's your revenge. You let your success burn quietly until their narratives melt under the heat of proof. You've learned that defending yourself is beneath your frequency. The world already sees the scoreboard. There's no need to point. Every new milestone erases another critic. Every turn of your head creates another believer. You don't argue anymore. You demonstrate. Now you're playing at a level where perception is power. You've become fluent in nuance, how to say everything without saying anything. That's why interviews sound like puzzles, captions read like riddles. You feed intrigue because mystery multiplies demand. The less you explain, the more they assume, and assumption is free marketing. You've transformed from personality to phenomenon, from person to presence. You no longer chase moments. Moments chase you. Every event's relevance spikes the second you arrive. Every brand's credibility rises when your name attaches. That's not coincidence, it's gravitational economics. You see the shift clearly now. Fame isn't spotlight, it's orbit. And you, unintentionally or not, became the sun in their social galaxy. They rotate around your consistency, drawing heat, light, inspiration, envy. Some will get too close and burn, others will stay distant and worship. But none can ignore you. That's the unspoken contract of brilliance. You can't choose who sees you, only what they see. So you curate even your imperfections. You let flaws breathe in public just enough to humanize the legend. Because relatability without vulnerability is hollow. You give them just enough to believe you're touchable, right before reminding them you're not. And yet, despite all the attention, you move quietly. That's your biggest flex. You've realized true power doesn't announce, it appears. You don't chase validation through noise. You confirm it through silence of mastery. Every project you drop, every appearance you make feels like an event. You've turned consistency into spectacle. The world's still trying to figure out how you do it. They study your timing, your restraint, your unpredictability, and fail. Because it's not strategy, it's instinct. You've aligned action with awareness so tightly that even your pauses look planned. Look around again. City lights don't compete with you. They collaborate. You've blurred the boundary between celebrity and phenomenon. You're no longer just recognized, you're anticipated. People don't wait for your next post. They prepare for it. That's control disguised as charisma. You're rewriting the algorithm of attention itself, showing that presence isn't about noise, it's about gravity. The deeper your self-belief sinks, the stronger the pull becomes. Every step you take leaves ripples across digital and physical worlds alike. That's why wherever you step, eyes lock on. It's not choice, it's reflex. Now even elites watch discreetly. You catch glimpses, executives whispering your name at events, creatives dissecting your choices in meetings. They want to understand how someone operates outside their formula and still wins. They study your unpredictability like investors study volatility, fearful yet fascinated. Because in a world addicted to exposure, you made scarcity seductive again. You've reminded them that mystique is marketing, that withholding is dominance. That's why doors open before you knock now. You don't ask, you attract. And through it all, you remain untamed by validation. You understand that attention is currency, but authenticity is the vault that holds it. So you guard that vault fiercely. You refuse to let the applause rewrite your DNA. You're the same essence, just amplified. That's why fame fits you instead of consuming you. It's wearing your shape. The aura didn't inflate your ego. It refined your purpose. You walk taller, not because you're watched, but because you've accepted what being watched means. Responsibility to represent possibility. And somewhere between the lights and the lenses, between admiration and envy, you realize the real secret. You were never chasing fame. You were refining visibility. You weren't trying to be seen. You were teaching the world how to see. Every glance directed at you is really a reflection of what they wish they could unlock within themselves. You've become proof of concept for confidence, a living tutorial in self-belief. That's why they stare. It's not about you. It's about the version of themselves they glimpse through you. And now, as you move through this new era of recognition, the air feels charged with silent applause. You sense the collective breath that follows your steps, the way space is tense before you arrive, as if rehearsing reverence. You've crossed that invisible line where fame stops being social and becomes elemental. People don't just watch you, they orient around you. You've become the compass of charisma, the human embodiment of momentum. Everything you touch accelerates. Every place you visit gains reputation by proximity. That's what modern superstardom looks like. It's contagion through confidence. They talk about you in rooms you've never entered, reference your mannerisms in creative meetings, model advertising campaigns off your tone. Even your absence has analytics now. Data maps your silence. Algorithms anticipate your reappearance. Timelines hold their breath like loyal subjects awaiting a monarch. And you move through it with the ease of inevitability, not arrogance but acceptance. Because deep down, you know this glow wasn't accidental. It was engineered through clarity. You stripped away hesitation until all that remained was certainty, and certainty glows. That's the radiance they can't replicate. It's not spotlight, it's self-permission. That's why wherever you step, eyes lock on. It's less about attraction and more about alignment. You've become the physical reminder of what conviction looks like when it walks. People study your smallest choices now. The way you nod, the tempo of your speech, the stillness between sentences. They call it aura, but it's precision. You understand the geometry of attention, how to occupy space without crowding it. You glide through chaos untouched because chaos recognizes hierarchy. Energy respects mastery, and you've mastered yourself. That's the unseen formula behind fame's illusion. Control your internal frequency, and the external world follows command. You didn't bend reality, you refined resonance. Now everyone else adjusts their pitch to harmonize with yours. That's why necks snap when you move. It's not shock, it's synchronization. Humanity craves coherence, and you've become the signal they tune to. But what happens after recognition stabilizes, when the glare softens and you're left with the echo of applause? That's where most crumble, mistaking attention for affection. You know better. You've learned that fame is not validation, it's verification. It proves what you already knew, that energy, when consistent, becomes legend. So you no longer chase expansion, you refine density. Every appearance condenses meaning. Every post carries weight. You've reached that rare stratosphere where scarcity multiplies impact. One word from you equals 1,000 from others. That's not hype. That's hierarchy earned through restraint. You've become fluent in silence's grammar, the punctuation of pauses. The world reads between your breaths now. And still you remain dangerous precisely because you're calm. People expect chaos from stars. You deliver composure. You make control look magnetic, and that unsettles them. They can't provoke what's unbothered. They try to decode you with interviews, headlines, think pieces, but every interpretation reveals more about them than you. You've become a psychological mirror that exposes projection. That's the truest form of fame. When your existence turns observers into revelations, you're no longer in the fame game. You're running the simulation of attention itself. You define relevance by existing. Others chase relevance by referencing you. That's why the world now feels smaller. It's orbiting your gravity. Every city reflects you now. Billboards feel familiar, as if they're remembering your silhouette. Clubs adjust lighting to imitate your complexion's contrast. Stylists chase your effortless ratio of simplicity to dominance. Even language bends. Slang adapts to your cadence. That's how fame becomes folklore. It's not repetition, it's recursion. The world retells you until you outgrow fact. And you let it, because you've learned the ultimate discipline. Never interrupt your myth while it's building itself. Every exaggeration works in your favor. Every misunderstanding is free mystique. They think they're defining you, but they're advertising you. You walk untouched because your legend absorbs the blows before they reach you. Yet beyond all that, there's peace. The type that comes when recognition stops being performance and becomes reflection. You don't crave applause anymore. You listen for resonance. You measure success not in metrics, but in momentum, how fast inspiration travels after it leaves you. You see it now, people moving braver, dressing louder, speaking freer because they witnessed your existence. That's legacy. Fame was the invitation. Influence is the conversation that follows. You're living proof that charisma, when aligned with authenticity, becomes revolution disguised as glamour. And that's why your presence feels medicinal. People leave interactions with you feeling more possible. You notice it everywhere. The subtle hush that follows your laughter, the spark in a stranger's eyes when you nod their way. You've transcended attention. You curate elevation. Every connection, no matter how brief, leaves an upgrade. That's not superstardom. That's energy leadership. You've become culture's North Star, guiding not through speeches, but through demonstration. You remind the world that confidence is contagious when it's real. That's why crowds part without cue. Cameras find you without invitation, and whispers turn into anthems carrying your name. You're not chasing moments anymore. You are the moment replaying across timelines, stitched into reels, written into memory. And as the lights rise higher, you see clearly what all this meant. The journey was never about being watched. It was about awakening watchers. The eyes locking on you were never chains. They were mirrors reflecting possibility. You didn't become famous to be worshipped. You became visible to remind others of their visibility. That's the highest form of stardom, to shine so others remember they can glow too. Every neck that turns isn't submission, it's awakening. They see what alignment looks like, and for a second, they believe they can claim it. That's your real legacy, transmission through presence. So you keep moving, not faster, not louder, just steadier. The ground hums recognition. The air records devotion. You're no longer walking through the world. You're rewriting how it perceives itself. That's the price and privilege of radiance, to carry the weight of eyes without losing sight of your own. But you manage it like everything else, with precision, with grace, with that unmistakable ease that turns observation into worship. Wherever you step, energy gathers, cameras lift, conversations pause. You don't perform anymore, you just arrive. And that's enough to rearrange reality. My dear, People can't define you anymore. They used to think they understood your type, but something in you changed so violently, so decisively, that now every attempt to label you collapses mid-sentence. You walk through places that used to drain you, and they feel smaller now. People who once towered over you shrink in your presence. You don't even have to speak. Your energy itself dismantles their confidence. There's something unexplainable about the way you occupy space now. Too calm to be ordinary, too composed to be predictable. You've become the conversation that never ends. The digital world keeps looping back to you, trying to pin down what exactly you are. Some say you're enlightened, others think you're dangerous. Both are wrong. You're awake. And that kind of awareness doesn't play by human comfort. It disrupts it. Your name travels in circles you've never entered. Screenshots of your words pass between strangers like secret codes. People use your sentences to anchor themselves through chaos. You've become their reference point when reality feels too heavy. But you didn't ask for this attention. You earned it by burning down every version of yourself that lied just to be liked. You purified your character through loss, through humiliation, through the unbearable honesty of self-confrontation. And now, every person who crosses your path can feel that evolution. It's not charm, it's consequence. You carry consequence now. People sense it before you even speak. They look at you and remember every promise they broke to themselves. You've become a mirror they can't look away from. That's why they talk. That's why they whisper your name with awe and tension. They can't tell if you're a warning or a prophecy. You've become the person they describe with phrases like, something about them, because they don't have language for what you evoke. You've altered their internal gravity. People find themselves standing straighter, breathing slower, thinking clearer in your presence, like their nervous system recognizes you as a higher reference of order. And yet, they're terrified, because your existence proves what's possible when someone stops negotiating with mediocrity. You shattered the script. You broke the rhythm. You stopped dancing to the world's manipulative music, and now it's dancing around you, desperate to find your beat. The ripple of your transformation reached places even you haven't seen. Behind closed doors, names you'll never know are analyzing your rise. Marketing firms are discussing how your impact defies metrics. Psychologists are trying to interpret your effect on digital audiences. There's data being tracked, charts being made, reports being drafted, all centered around you. Because your growth doesn't fit their formulas. It's too organic, too disciplined, too rooted in self-awareness. They can't replicate it because it wasn't manufactured, it was earned. Every scar you endured became a signature. Every disappointment you survived became a signal. That's why the world feels your presence before it even meets you. You transmit truth like a frequency, and every false version of reality starts glitching near it. And that's when it began, the obsession. People began recording your voice, analyzing your patterns, quoting you out of context just to feel close to your clarity. They can't explain how you changed them. They just know you did. You didn't hypnotize them. You reintroduced them to their own reflection. You didn't motivate them. You made them remember they were built for more. You've become the uninvited awakening inside thousands of people who thought they were content. They scroll past your words and feel a pulse they can't ignore. The pulse of truth. The pulse of someone who stopped pretending. And now they can't go back. They don't even understand that you've started a quiet revolution, Not the loud kind with flags and slogans, the subtle kind that happens in private moments, when someone deletes the contact that drains them, when they start rebuilding their mind after hearing your voice in their head, telling them to stop wasting potential. You became their permission slip to evolve. And that's exactly what terrifies those who thrive on dependency. Because your influence doesn't create followers, it creates leaders. It multiplies power instead of hoarding it. That's why the old guard is uneasy. They can't profit from someone whose value can't be owned. You're the kind of person algorithms weren't built to contain. You rise in patterns that confuse their predictions. You disappear and resurface at perfect intervals, always ahead of the narrative. You've turned unpredictability into precision. You don't chase relevance, you redefine it. The more they try to copy you, the more exposed their mediocrity becomes. People online now use your name like a brand of awakening. They reference you in captions they hope will sound profound, not realizing that your depth came from destruction, not decoration. You bled for the wisdom they quote for likes. They repost your phrases like prayers, hoping some of your discipline rubs off on them. But what you have can't be borrowed. It can only be earned through confrontation. You're the embodiment of what happens when someone finally gets tired of being average. And that's why people are obsessed. They see in you what they could have been if they didn't surrender to comfort. You've become the embodiment of the version they abandoned. You've noticed it too, how differently the world reacts now. Old acquaintances can't look you in the eyes. Strangers treat you like a mystery that shouldn't exist. Opportunities appear out of nowhere. People act more polite around you, not out of respect, but out of instinct. They sense the hierarchy has changed. They sense that you're no longer someone who participates. You command. Not through volume, not through ego, but through vibration. You've become the quiet center around which chaos reorganizes itself. You don't chase control, you embody it. And in a world addicted to noise, your composure became the loudest signal alive. It started with whispers, but now it's headlines. Who is this person? Why are they affecting people this way? Analysts are tracking your growth curves like market anomalies. They can't understand how you maintain momentum without manipulation. They suspect strategy, but they don't understand that your strategy is authenticity weaponized with discipline. You didn't rise because of exposure. You rose because of consistency. You made truth your brand. You made composure your identity. You became allergic to performance, and people who live off illusions can't compete with that. That's why they've stopped trying to destroy you and started trying to decode you. Behind the scenes, they're running experiments, comparing engagement spikes when your name trends, tracking psychological responses to your videos, building theories about your aura. They don't understand that what they're measuring isn't charisma. It's conviction. You operate from conviction so absolute that it bends perception. You've mastered the rare art of emotional control in a generation addicted to reaction. That's why your presence rewires people. You expose how hollow most interactions have become. You remind them what real power feels like: quiet, patient, deliberate. You don't announce. You arrive. You became a disruption disguised as calm. That's why people mistake your peace for danger. It's not your energy they fear. It's their own reflection in it. They can't lie to themselves when you're near. Your aura strips away excuses. It leaves people naked in their truth. That's why some adore you and others avoid you. The impact is the same. You make everyone confront something inside themselves. You've become a catalyst, a mirror, a standard, a reminder that it's possible to rise without cruelty, to evolve without validation, to dominate without destruction. You didn't come to compete. You came to redefine. And now the world is struggling to keep up with the standard you set just by existing. But here's the most fascinating part. People who never met you feel like they know you. They describe you with details that don't even make sense, like they've downloaded fragments of your energy through a screen. That's not coincidence. That's transference. Your focus has become contagious. Your self-respect has become a psychological virus spreading through people who are tired of mediocrity. They start making better choices without realizing it's your influence. They start cutting off toxic connections without naming the reason. You've become the unnamed cause of countless personal revolutions. And as much as they try to rationalize it, the truth is simple. You changed their perception of what's possible. Your existence became evidence that transformation doesn't require permission. That you don't need a movement to start a movement. You just need to move differently. You broke the illusion that people need validation to evolve. You didn't wait for approval. You became the approval. And that's the part they can't replicate. You don't just talk about growth. You embody it. You make evolution look natural. You make healing look cinematic. You make control look sacred. And because of that, you've become both their obsession and their blueprint. People copy your posture, your tone, your energy, hoping to feel what you feel. But they forget, you didn't reach this level by imitation. You reached it by isolation. You earned it by bleeding in private and rising in public. And now, you've crossed the threshold where mystery turns into mythology. They no longer just admire you, they study you. You're the reference point in discussions about modern influence. You're the cautionary tale for those who play small. You're the hidden inspiration behind movements that don't even credit you. And through all of it, you remain unbothered, watching the world try to explain what only experience can reveal. They think they're analyzing you, but really they're documenting their own awakening. You've become the proof that self-mastery isn't just evolution, it's revolution. And as this realization spreads, the obsession reaches its next stage. Not just admiration, not just confusion, reverence. People are starting to understand that what they're feeling isn't hype, it's alignment. That what they're witnessing isn't coincidence, it's calibration. The frequency you carry is forcing humanity to remember what it's capable of. And as the data, the whispers, the fascination, all merge into one global pulse, the world finally asks the question they can't shake. Who the hell is this person, and how did they do it? But that question won't stay unanswered for long, because what's coming next isn't just recognition, it's exposure. The deeper forces that have been watching from the shadows are about to step into the light. And you're about to see how far your influence truly reaches. The shift starts subtly, like a pressure change in the air before a new weather front. Television hosts begin referencing you indirectly, sliding your name into discussions about social change. A politician quotes your line in Parliament without credit. News anchors argue over whether your effect on the youth is inspirational or dangerous. They can't categorize you, so they frame you. But the more they frame you, the clearer it becomes that you've escaped the picture entirely. You exist outside their angles, moving like a signal through static. Your words travel faster than they can censor. The rhythm of your speech is now embedded in the subconscious of millions who repeat fragments. without even realizing where they came from. You've become part of the collective operating code. The world has started reorganizing around your vibration. Across continents, small things begin aligning. Artists paint portraits of you without ever meeting you, each one claiming they felt guided. Journalists research your rise and end up questioning their own identity halfway through the article. Tech engineers use your quotes as placeholder text and report feeling strangely motivated. You've slipped beyond influence into infiltration. The air around your existence carries instruction. People don't just admire you, they recalibrate through you. They start eating differently, dressing differently, thinking differently, not to copy, but to align. It's like the global psyche has recognized you as an evolutionary signal. You've become the proof that consciousness can trend. And as it trends, the line between audience and participant disappears. You're not a celebrity, you're an upgrade. At first, the analysts call it coincidence, but data doesn't lie. Emotional health surveys spike in the regions where your content circulates most. Crime rates drop in small pockets after your speeches hit local networks. Search engines show parallel increases in self-education, fitness, and entrepreneurship. People aren't following you, they're waking up inside themselves. That's what terrifies the gatekeepers. They realize that your presence is erasing the need for intermediaries. You're dissolving dependency. People are starting to believe they can build, heal, and command their own lives again. And in a world addicted to control, that's rebellion. Behind the curtain, the institutions convene. A few call it the resonance problem. They gather in glass towers to discuss why one person's words are causing measurable behavioral shifts. Psychologists compare it to mass hypnosis, but no one is under a spell, they're breaking one. Economists notice consumer habits shifting from impulsive to intentional. Religious leaders quietly reword sermons to sound like you. Even intelligence agencies run sentiment analyses trying to predict where your message will go next. They can't. Every time they map you, you move. Every attempt to trace your pattern leads back to a single uncomfortable conclusion. Authenticity cannot be contained. You're not an influencer, you're a contagion of clarity. On the streets, it's even stranger. Teenagers quote you during arguments with parents. Boardroom executives cite you when negotiating billion-dollar deals. Activists chant your phrases at protests. Soldiers write your initials on their gear before deployment. There's no organized campaign behind it, just the raw echo of truth traveling through humanity. It spreads without effort, like fire through oxygen. Because deep down, every person who hears you recognizes themselves in your voice. You're not teaching them something new. You're reminding them of something ancient. You've become the universal trigger for remembrance. And the more they remember, the more the old structures crumble. You start noticing the change when people stop asking for advice and start reporting results. They say, "I left the relationship. I built the business. I faced my fear." All because something you said rewired their courage. Your name comes up in therapy sessions, in corporate seminars, in courtroom defenses. People say, "I saw that video, and it changed everything." But what they really mean is, "I saw myself reflected without distortion for the first time." You didn't hand them answers. You handed them back their agency. That's the quiet revolution you've ignited. And revolutions built on awareness can't be shot, silenced, or sold. Still, there are those who resist. For every life changed, There's an ego cracking under the weight of exposure. Not everyone is ready to confront themselves. You can see it in their comments, the ones dripping with projection. They call you manipulative because you dismantled their illusions. They call you arrogant because you remind them how much power they surrendered. But even their hatred is a confession. They can't stop engaging. They watch you to hate you and end up evolving despite themselves. That's the paradox of real transformation. It doesn't ask for permission, it demands participation. You've turned even resistance into momentum. Meanwhile, whispers spread through elite circles. Private meetings reference you by code name. The catalyst, the mirror, the variable. In surveillance briefings, your effect graph looks like an earthquake. Energy researchers propose that consciousness itself might have frequency thresholds, and you've crossed one. Philosophers write papers arguing that you represent the next stage of self-awareness. Even skeptics start doubting their skepticism. The old world order thrives on predictability, but you've turned unpredictability into precision. Every move you make feels intentional, even when it's not. Every pause feels scripted by destiny, even though it's instinct. You've become the embodiment of momentum, guided by meaning. And then the testimonies begin. People you've never met release videos describing life-altering encounters. A woman in Japan claims one of your lines stopped her from ending her life. A former criminal in Brazil says he changed course after replaying your clip 100 times. A surgeon in Germany operates with your speech playing through earbuds because it steadies his hands. They're not worshiping. You don't allow that. They're synchronizing. You've given them permission to self-regulate through consciousness instead of chaos. You've reminded them that discipline is sacred. In a generation drowning in distraction, you taught focus like scripture. You made stillness feel like strength. You made effort fashionable again. The public response turns tidal. News outlets rush to interpret the phenomenon while pretending not to contribute to it. Documentaries air interviews with people whose lives you altered. They talk about you like you're both person and parable. Hashtags evolve into movements. Every new upload of yours becomes a global checkpoint. A digital communion where millions log in not just to watch, but to synchronize. They don't just hear your words, they feel the calibration. Comment sections read like confessions. You made me quit drugs. I walked away from abuse. I found peace after years. It's not fandom, it's metamorphosis. You're forcing humanity to confront the possibility that enlightenment can be contagious. Governments attempt subtle countermeasures. They adjust algorithms, dilute your reach, shadow your keywords, but it only amplifies your myth. The more they hide you, the more curious the world becomes. Suppression becomes advertisement. Conspiracy forums start calling you a social experiment. Scientists try to replicate your voice patterns to see if the tone alone triggers dopamine releases. They can't reproduce it. They call it the resonance effect, a field generated by alignment between message and embodiment. You don't just speak truth. You are the proof of it. Every sentence carries the evidence of lived experience. That's why people trust you more than institutions. You've become the new definition of credibility, consistent authenticity under pressure. But while the world measures, dissects, and theorizes, something more intimate unfolds. Quiet transformations ripple through ordinary lives. A father finally tells his daughter he's proud. A young woman forgives her mother after years of resentment. A man battling depression steps outside and feels sunlight differently. None of them understand why they're crying. They just know that somewhere, somehow, you spoke to the part of them that still believed. That's the scale of your reach. You're reshaping emotional DNA. You've made vulnerability fashionable, accountability viral, growth inevitable. Every healed person becomes a messenger, spreading fragments of your frequency through their own lives until entire communities shift vibration without realizing the origin. And through all of this, you remain composed, observing the waves from a distance. You don't celebrate the fame, you study the pattern. You know that attention is currency and energy is economy. You spend both with precision. While the world obsesses over your persona, you keep refining your purpose. You know that power without intention decays. So you treat your influence like sacred architecture. Every word, every pause, every gesture calculated to build rather than consume. That's why your presence doesn't drain people, it charges them. You've turned communication into transmutation. You're no longer speaking, you're programming. Not in a mechanical sense, but through the natural language of energy. The human psyche recognizes your syntax before the mind even interprets it. That's the real technology you wield. Consciousness coded into articulation. By now, the experts have stopped pretending to understand. They move from analysis to surrender. Universities propose courses about your philosophy. Think tanks publish essays titled "The Person Who Rewired Perception." Some warn of danger, others preach devotion, but none can deny the numbers. Millions of lives redirected, thousands of industries disrupted, one undeniable pattern: you. Every generation produces icons, but you've crossed into archetype. You've become an inevitability encoded into human progress. Not a brand, not a leader, but a frequency marker. The proof that one aligned being can bend collective direction. Yet amidst all the chaos, you stay grounded. You walk through airports unnoticed despite global fame, blending into crowds as if anonymity were armor. You know that true power doesn't need spotlight. It moves through shadow. You let the world argue about you while you keep evolving quietly. Each time they think they've caught up, you shift again. Because evolution, for you, isn't a phase. It's respiration. You breathe growth. And that's why they can't copy you. You're not performing transformation. You are transformation. The deeper consequence is unfolding behind closed doors. CEOs discuss you in crisis meetings, asking why their motivational programs fail now that people have tasted real empowerment. Religious leaders hold summits to reinterpret doctrine for a generation that listens to you more than them. Governments consider policies to harness the wave instead of fight it. They know they can't stop an idea once it becomes embodied truth. And that's what you are, embodied truth walking the earth, reminding humanity what authenticity feels like after centuries of anesthesia. Even nature seems to respond. Weather patterns shift around your events, as if the planet itself acknowledges coherence when it appears. Animals approach you without fear. Children stare at you with recognition. Elderly people cry when they hear your voice. It's not magic, it's resonance. The same resonance that binds galaxies is now echoing through your existence. You've become a tuning fork for consciousness. And the more the world aligns with you, the less it can tolerate deception. Old hierarchies crumble not through war, but through irrelevance. The age of false power ends quietly under the weight of your authenticity. But power attracts attention of a different kind. Hidden organizations, long obsessed with control, begin to analyze whether you can be weaponized. They reach out with offers disguised as opportunities. You decline each one with precision, knowing that the moment you sell your essence, the message dies. You'd rather be misunderstood than manipulated. That decision turns you from influencer to legend, because history always remembers those who couldn't be bought. Soon, a new phenomenon emerges. People claim that being near you accelerates synchronicities. They meet the right person, get the right call, heal faster. Scientists dismiss it as placebo, but they can't ignore the data clusters. Wherever you go, probability seems to bend. It's as if reality cooperates with your conviction. You've become proof that inner coherence alters external outcomes, and that realization, terrifying and liberating, spreads faster than any virus. Humanity begins to understand that one person fully aligned is more powerful than 1,000 fragmented ones. By now, even your critics start softening. They realize resistance is just delayed admiration. The hate comments dwindle, replaced by reluctant respect. People who once mocked you now defend you in arguments. They've realized that you're not the threat. They are, to their own comfort. You didn't come to dominate them. You came to show them their own potential in motion. And once they see it, they can't unsee it. That's why the phrase keeps echoing across every feed, every hallway, every conversation. Who the fuck is this person? It's not a question anymore. It's a recognition. They're not asking about your identity. They're awakening to theirs. And somewhere deep in the digital hum of the world, algorithms, analysts, and watchers finally admit defeat. They can track your metrics, but not your meaning. They can map your reach, but not your reason. Because this was never about going viral. It was about going vital, injecting vitality back into a species that forgot how to feel alive. Now, as governments observe, corporations imitate, and individuals transform, you stand at the threshold of something uncontainable. The question isn't who you are anymore. It's what comes through you. The narrative has outgrown language. You've become the point where human evolution meets divine design. Every headline, every confession, every trembling voice saying, "You changed my life," is proof that consciousness found its spokesperson. And as the world catches its breath, you prepare to reveal what none of them expect. This was never about fame. It was about frequency. You didn't just change lives, you awakened life itself. And that's when the shift crystallizes, when the world realizes you didn't ascend to escape humanity. You ascended to remind it of itself. What comes through you now isn't motivation, it's transmission. You've stopped being a person people study. You've become a phenomenon they feel. The air moves differently when you enter a room. Conversations recalibrate when your name is mentioned. People pause mid-scroll, mid-thought, mid-breath, because something in their spirit recognizes its origin point. You're not famous. You're familiar in a way that terrifies those who forgot where they came from. You speak, and it doesn't sound like teaching. It sounds like remembering. It's the kind of remembering that rewrites entire bloodlines. People heal generational wounds because you proved transcendence doesn't require distance. It requires depth. You didn't teach detachment. You demonstrated mastery through connection. That's why they call you divine, though you never claimed divinity. You became the bridge between the human and the infinite by daring to be completely real. Every time someone says, "You changed my life," they're not worshiping you. They're witnessing themselves through you. You've become the world's mirror, polished by discipline, reflecting what humanity could look like if it stopped settling for survival and started choosing expansion. Your power doesn't come from mystery anymore. It comes from transparency. You've made growth feel holy, authenticity feel luxurious, alignment feel addictive. People follow your trail not because they're chasing you, but because it's the only path where they still feel alive. The question, who the fuck is this person, has turned into a mantra across continents. Teachers quote it to ignite curiosity. Artists tattoo it as a vow to stay awake. Parents whisper it after seeing their children evolve through your influence. It's no longer about identity, it's initiation. You've become the threshold everyone must cross to meet the version of themselves that's been waiting beneath fear. Your existence itself has become instruction. You are no longer a subject of fascination, you are a method. People study your composure to learn restraint. They analyze your speech to decode balance. They replicate your stillness to access strength. You've redefined power, not as domination, but as direction. And yet you remain unreachable, not because you've isolated yourself, but because your wavelength has outgrown dependency. You give freely without needing to be thanked. You move silently through digital channels like oxygen through lungs, unseen yet vital. The world builds new vocabulary around you, frequency, shift, coherence, embodiment, but none of it captures the essence. You didn't just rise, you synchronized with something timeless. That's why everything now feels slower, clearer, sharper in your orbit. You've made awareness the new luxury. People spend fortunes chasing what you gave away for free. Presence. That's the paradox. They chase you because you no longer chase anything. You've become the evidence that peace isn't passive, it's power under control. And through you, people are learning that influence isn't loud, it's alignment expressed. The loudest ones fade, the aligned ones remain. You didn't dominate the world, you tuned it. As humanity watches, the shift spreads deeper than metrics can measure. Countries start adopting your philosophies into education systems. Corporations rebrand to echo your language of integrity. Artists release music inspired by your cadence. Activists channel your precision instead of anger. The ripple has become reform. You've changed the definition of success from accumulation to coherence. People no longer ask, "What do I have?" but "Who have I become?" And each time that question is asked, your frequency hums quietly in the background, guiding them toward truth. You've made consciousness contagious. The same people who once doubted you now carry fragments of your message in their daily choices. You didn't demand followers, you produced founders. You didn't build a fan base, you built an ecosystem of awakening. You've done what no marketing campaign or movement could ever do. You've turned awareness into a civilization's new foundation. But the deeper truth is this: your power was never about transforming others. It was about remembering who you were before the world told you to shrink. The light that people now see in you was always there. You just stopped dimming it to make others comfortable. And in doing so, you gave the world permission to glow. Every "you changed my life" is really, "you reminded me I still have one." You've made hope look disciplined, not desperate. You've made purpose look practical, not poetic. You've made truth look achievable. The irony is, you never intended to be the symbol. You just refused to stop evolving. And that refusal rewrote destiny's choreography. The watchers, the doubters, the imitators, all of them became accidental disciples of authenticity. Now the question no longer echoes as confusion, it resounds as confirmation. Who the fuck is this person? They finally know. You're the one who turned existence into evidence. The one who showed that being real is the highest rebellion left. The one who redefined what it means to rise, not above others, but within yourself so completely that the world had no choice but to follow. You didn't come to inspire, you came to awaken. And now that the awakening has begun, nothing can reverse it. Nations can regulate content. Corporations can imitate tone. Critics can dissect motive. But the pulse of your presence lives where none of them can reach, inside the human heart. And as you stand now, watching a world transformed by something as simple as truth, spoken with conviction, you understand what this all meant. It was never about becoming more. It was about unbecoming everything that wasn't real. That's why they say you changed their lives. Because you showed them what life actually is when it's unfiltered, unafraid, and unapologetically conscious. You didn't arrive to be understood. You arrived to be felt. And they feel you everywhere now, in art, in thought, in silence between heartbeats. You're not a mystery to solve. You're a reminder to remember. The phenomenon isn't you. It's what you unlocked in them. And that's the real legacy, not the echo of your name, but the awakening of a world that finally remembered what it means to be alive.